So before we explore this in depth, I'd like to listen to your voices. We all know that in schools, what assessment feels like, how the assessment is, being implemented is often more influential in shaping how assessment processes take place than what is our understanding or as a policy or what does research says about it. So there are the details on a Mentimeter for a Mentimeter. You can just go to menti.com on your browsers or on your, if you're on your laptops, you can open a new tab, just type menti.com. You will be asked for a code, voting code. This is the code which is there. And you have to give maybe 2, 3, 4 words. There are multiple choice options, right? So you have to say what comes to your mind when you hear the word assessment. So giving you some time and looking at the responses. I know that right now there are very few of you, but you can put in multiple responses. You can see a lot of responses coming up. So let me stop sharing this slide because this shows you all have the Mentimeter code with you now. And I'll take you to the Mentimeter now. So you can see what you and our fellow attendees are putting in their response. Question paper, that's such an honest answer, yes. Feed forward is something which we all know, feedback and feed forward, of course. So we can see that what is the dominant word here, which is what we educators actually see in the assessment in the form it is brought to the schools. We understand that it is feed forward. We understand that it is a process to give us a lot of feedback on the students' learning, also on the teachers, teaching on where they can have an informed way of curating or tailor make the teaching for their learners. So all that is what assessment should be about. But what is dominating the responses is what happens in schools, right? We talk about question paper when we talk about assessments, we talk about marking schemes. We can see that you are also talking of goal setting is related to assessment. You are talking about it's a process, absolutely. But we talk also of standards where the students should reach. What are the rubrics which we are giving them? How do we assess them? So assessment is very closely related to standards. Yes, it mostly summative as someone is saying, right? So it's about branding students. It's about assessment should be about policy. I can see that word. So, okay, thank you so much. I'll again stop sharing and go back to you all. Coming back to, again, a next question, because we are exploring together. We are all educationists with different experiences. We are all having, different cultural context, a school level context in our own schools, which shapes what we do as teachers and educators in the schools or even as leaders. So it's taking a little time for you all to go. But what I'll do, if you continue on, I will take you to the, till the time this presentation loads. I will take you to your next question. And if you can again go back, you will find there is another question. You might be on another slide, which is asking you another question. Are you able to see the slide? If I can get a thumbs up there.
Yeah, just only it is getting shared.
Okay. All right. Luckily now my presentation is also there. Yes.
Yeah.
So this is where we were. And now we move on to the next question. Because very honestly, as educationists, we discussed what assessment looks like in a school, So we should now be answering which is not a purpose of assessment, to have a more clarity around, what assessment is about, what should we be not doing with assessment tools, which are multiple. There are multiple tools of assessing a learner's progress. So think about it. And there are some questions on the slide, if you can just answer them.
Alka, is the code same?
It's the code same, yes. Yes. Okay. It's shown on the slide as well, if you all can see that. 48490130.
Okay, the question remains the same there. Hence,
is it not changing?
Yeah, in the Mentimeter, the question remains the same.
Okay, I'll just refresh.
Okay.
I have added
which is not a purpose of assessment.
Which is not a purpose of assessment. Can you see the slide now? Thank you, Madan, for helping me see what attendees are seeing. Can they see now?
I believe the same question gets reflected.
Which is not a purpose of assessment. Can they see that? Or are they still saying what is assessment?
They are seeing a question called what comes to mind when you hear assessment. The same
I have already put it on the new.
Okay.
Maybe there's a lag from my end. Tried refreshing it a few times.
Yeah, now it is coming.
All right.
Yeah. It's a choice, right? Which is not.
Yes, it's a choice. Yes, choice. Right. Yeah. Okay. Do look at what the question is, which is not a purpose of assessment. Okay, wonderful. All right, so we know that our attendees are fully aware of what is not the purpose of assessment. So I can see that right now there is one response. Can we have few more? So you may take all of them. If there are more than one answers for what is not a purpose of assessment, you can choose all of those.
I guess it is allowing us to choose only one.
Okay, all right. Okay, maybe so. All right. So let's come back to the chat and then discuss this. Right?
Yeah.
Until the time you may keep thinking about what options are there and what are we actually engaging in. Right? So we looked at which is not a purpose of assessment, and many of you were giving the answers. And I'm sorry if the option did not allow you to choose more than one, but this is what we are looking at, right? The right answers, which meant we should not be using assessment for this purpose, was to label our learners or to intimidate them that, this is a test which is going on, the exams are important. So we don't want to intimidate them. We don't want to create a stress. That is not a purpose of assessment. or to rank students against each other. You are first, you are 15th, you are, third. Actually, when we say that these are not the purpose of assessment, then what are the purpose of assessment is where these are the wrong answers if you would have gone in the Mentimeter, which none of you were choosing it. So we have a good understanding that we want to identify the learning gaps, which you had indicated very correctly in the first Mentimeter activity. We want to have some information about where the learners are and how this helps me to refine my teaching, so that informed teaching takes place in the class, which meets the learners' needs, and to track the progress, where they are and where they are moving each learner wise. But we also understand honestly that many school systems, although they do it unintentionally, turn assessment into labeling. And when the purpose becomes ranking instead of learning, the system stops being empowering. It doesn't empower our learners, it doesn't empower our teachers. So Cambridge approach begins with what learning needs, not what data needs. We need a data where my students are, how many got 70%, how many got less than 30%. And so we are using assessment to create a data bank for us. But what Cambridge approaches, it's about what the learning needs are, and therefore assessment is used not for labeling, because when we use it for labeling, learning shrinks. It becomes very confined. But if assessment is used to have informed teaching learning, then the learning expands for the learners. And therefore, Cambridge assessment, the whole structuring of Cambridge assessment is rooted in this belief that every learner has potential. And we educationists also know that. And the role of assessment is to unlock it and not judge it, that you are here, you cannot do this, this is beyond you, we don't want to do this. And therefore, we go with this belief that assessment should support learning, not just measure it. And this single statement captures the foundation of Cambridge's view of assessment, that scores alone don't improve learning. What you had rightly mentioned at what assessment mean, it feedback actually supports learning. So assessment on its own is not a very powerful tool. Assessment, when together with supported with the very precise feedback and timely feedback, so that improves learning. So our task is not to label learners, but to understand where they are in their learning journey and how we can move them forward. And when assessment becomes supportive rather than a punishment, students feel safer to take intellectual risk. What I about this answer is what I'm writing. And therefore, they're able to take some risk about some creative thinking, some creative, innovative answers to something, and teachers gain clearer insight into the learning progress. So we are going to explore how our perception aligns with a Cambridge vision of assessment, because as educators, we know what assessment purpose is and how do we want to bring it there. So for that, something which relates to all of us and we can quickly relate is, so I use the bucket analogy. That, is our assessment valid? And what does validity means to us in the field of assessment and education? So assessment is like passing some water through a pipeline, or through people passing a bucket of water from one to another to reach a destination. And if we fill up with knowledge, like water is filled up in a bucket, but there are various leaks in the bucket itself, what will happen? The whole progress of learning, the whole education or the knowledge or the values, skills which we are building up for our learners through that bucket is now leaking. And therefore, finally, where the learners reaches with very less understanding, knowledge and skill. So this is how I define that assessments is like a bucket where knowledge is being poured. Assessment keeps it intact, it's supported. And there are different ways when you keep on filling the bucket with knowledge, skills, understanding, and the progression is more water is reaching in the end. So think about it, that are there any learning leaks in your system of education, and what that can be? How, like, supposing we say that this is a step of 2 marks question paper, in a maths paper or in a, say, science paper, and we have given 5 marks. How are we supporting it? Where are the marks justifying? Or it's a 4 marks question and we have given and allocated only 2 marks for it. So where are we leaving? What are we asking the students to produce as an evidence of learning? Where are the leaks? Are our marking systems defined? Are the answer schemes defined well? If giving an example, we want to see the confidence of the child in comprehending a language text. But when they start speaking to you, it's a vocal, assessment, maybe in a class, verbal assessment, and you're asking them that, what is the, can you read it properly? Can you explain and summarize it? And the child is making, say, what do you say, using a not very strong vocabulary, or the pronunciation is wrong, or the grammatical errors are there. So are we now penalizing the child on the grammatical error? Because we are talking about comprehension of the text. Has he understood the whole idea which is given in the text? So that understanding are we testing? Is he able to bring the evidence of that understanding? Or we are marking him on, he cannot use the correct grammatical sentences, his pronunciation of certain words is wrong. So the marks or what allocation is happening, the score is not aligned with the objective. So the objective is, and the marks are creating a leak in the assessment system, and we call it a leak in the learning process. So these are the painful truth. We make big teaching decisions based on a leaking data. We collect the scores, the marks, and say the child is not so well versed in mathematics. He's poor in understanding of science subjects. His language skills are not very clear. And where are we drawing these inferences from? We are drawing these inferences from a leaking data, which is not appropriately supporting the students in understanding their learning journey. If we are able to fix this validity, we are fixing the learning accuracy more. So that's where we have to kind of focus on. And this, because vision wise, if we are looking at from one chapter or lesson to another lesson, we are making progress in our teaching, but is the learning progressing for the learner, or there are different leaks in the system? Learners have not understood, but we move forward with the teaching. So learning is, that is a learning leak which is happening in our bucket of teaching learning. So assessment should be and can be perfectly planned and beautifully structured, but fail to measure learning. So our test papers are nicely designed. We have a lot of quizzes, we have a lot of group interaction and project work going. So we can beautifully structure it. But if it's not valid, it is not meeting the desired objective of learning, then we are not measuring the learning for the right cause. So if the question does not measure the intended outcome, assessment is leaking. And questions recall, they are we are creating question paper which or asking questions which are testing the recall, the memory power, the memorization power instead of understanding. Then there is a leak. Marking criteria is very unclear for our learners. We say that's a leaking system. Skills and learning intentions don't match the task, like I gave you the example of comprehension and connecting it with wrong grammatical sentence structure or the pronunciation. So we are marking the child on that instead of comprehension. So the skills and the learning intentions don't match. So when validity is weak, the data may look accurate, but the insight, the understanding which we are getting about the learner's journey is not accurate. So when leaders and the teachers know where the leak is, so if we start thinking about it and we really understand where the leak is, we know how to fix teaching and learning. And that is why validity is central to Cambridge assessment design. Right till the qualifying examination, Cambridge looks at whether the questions are valid and the mark schemes are accurately mapped. And therefore, to make it very clear for all of us who are attending to see in assessment terms, what is the student's learning? People in line, when we say we pass on from one bucket from one person to another person, it's the whole assessment process. And teachers, questions, examiners, school system, marking scheme, all of these are part of the process of learning happening through assessment. And the bucket is the assessment task which we design, the question paper, the projects, the talks which we have in the class. That's the bucket. And if that is not properly designed, the leaks or the spill, loss of learning happens. Sometimes the teachers move out of a school system and the child's learning is going in a different direction with the help of the previous teacher, and the teacher moves out, a new teacher comes in. The process of learning changes, the focus of teaching learning changes, and therefore, but the child is being assessed on by the new teacher. And therefore, we say the system of assessment is having leak. So anything which is related to teaching learning practices should be very sound for assessment to give you the accurate data. So next thing is coming in reliability and fairness. Now, one teacher designs very easy test, very easy to score, and we say the child is getting 90% in grade 6 in maths. They move on to grade 7 and suddenly the scores come down because probably the next teacher is judging them on very high order thinking skills. There is no balance in the paper for middle level of ability learners or high level of learners. So we have to be very consistent in the assessment design. We have to be fair to the student that 90% of mathematics in one grade also means that 90% of understanding, knowledge, and learning has happened in previous grade or the next grade. So that is called fairness and consistency. And the assessments should be very fair. It should not be that the teacher, my paper is, judged by so and so teacher in section A. She's very fair and lenient in her marking, and she gives marks even for some small errors. She does not deduct marks, and other teacher is very strict. So in two sections there is a disparity. So we say this is not a consistent marking or assessment. Therefore, just if you want to put it in your chat, do you think that you are very sure that your marking in your school is consistent for every teacher, like a grade 5 maths teacher and grade 7 maths teacher? Think of where question papers will be giving marks, answer schemes, which kind of answers are accepted. So you can guess. So we are being honest here. It's an educational forum where we are talking about identifying the leaks and, trying to fix the leak. So can we have, across the subject, teachers meeting, departmental meeting, look at fair, valid, consistent marking and assessment design. And that will happen only when we honestly understand it. So good to see your, answers. You can continue to put around that. And where small moderation might be needed. So we cannot be very perfect. We are all human beings and we are interacting with humans. Learners are also humans. So we have to be fair to ourselves as teachers also. We can't be robotically designed machines which are marking the answers exactly the same across different grades, different years. But but if it's too significant, the gaps are very, very large, then we say that the students are experiencing a very unfair system of assessment. Now, if we look at from the Cambridge point of view, the examiners continuously grow through a training system on mark schemes to assure reliability. There are online meetings, there are online viewing of the qualifications which are being marked. Like if 10th grade papers are being marked, a principal examiner will continuously log in and see how the examiner has been marking. Examiner A has been marking a question, examiner B has been marking a question. Somewhere in the world, examiner C is how he's marking the same question. So they see that the moderation continues to happen across the world at the same time. They don't wait it. And they encourage that the schools also adopt the same system. And we should not say a learner should not be lucky that we say, oh, in our times, I hope my board exam question paper and answers go to a very, what do you say, very, very easy marker, or an examiner who is very happy examiner who gives us big upgrades. So that's how we would pray that I hope we are lucky in my exams, in our board exam. So a learner should not be lucky or unlucky based on who marks their work. Reliability protects our students. They protect them from individual intervention. And Cambridge spends years trialing paper, looking at the difficulty level. When the grades are announced, past 3 years of subject papers are analyzed. That is the difficulty level same? If not, then the grades are accordingly adjusted. So they do it, and we can do it in our schools also. Right? That last year's paper, if we gave 90% to this student, was the paper a little easy in the final exam, and this year paper is a little more tougher. So we can see that across the year also papers and the assessment. This is at the assessment level. They are being fair, valid, and consistent. A 90% A grade student last year is also equal in ability and skill almost to a 90% A grade student this year. Because fairness is not optional. It is the right of the student where learning is concerned. And we want that to happen in our school as educationists. And also we have to look at what are our assessments doing to us. Does it mean continuous? Means we say, oh, assessment has to be continuous. It helps us to have stronger support for learning. Teaching becomes stronger. But continuous means what? Lot more testing, lot more unit test, everyday exam or quizzes and things. Does that mean that? No. Continuous does not mean repetitive testing. That creates a lot of stress in you. Continuous is equal to feedback is happening all the time, continuously, in time. Somebody does a mistake or overlooks something, and you say, oh, you know what? We should have looked at this and then created your answer, or your thinking taken forward. So feedback, if it is instant, it is an ongoing in the classroom. Lot of dialogues are happening between student and student, teacher and student. So feedback is immediate, clarity is immediate, and therefore growth is immediate. And that is what continuous assessment is. Repetitive means lot of stress, lot of confusion, lot of shallow data. Like we said, we mark and we correct data, and we don't even know students were prepared mentally or otherwise. So think mentally. I mean, this is a webinar, so we won't say quick share. What do your weekly tests really reveal? When we take exams, what are we looking at? Are we looking at are the students able to recall every week what we have done just in the last 2-3 lessons in the week? Or what else do we want to know? Are they revealing what are their learning gaps? Are our quizzes, do we have the time to do that, to design every week very fully comprehensive assessment which gives you a detailed understanding of what the gaps are? And even if we are taking weekly tests or maybe summative exams at a intervals, monthly unit test, term wise unit exams, what are we doing with the information which the assessments or the tests are giving to us? Because assessment is a complete process, like you all had mentioned in the early Mentimeter activity. It's a process which talks about feedback coming together and acting on. I have a feedback. It's if I give an analogy, right? So if I give you an analogy that I get up we are these days becoming very health conscious. So every morning I get up, I take my weight on the weighing machine. Oh, I see I give a feedback to myself. Oh, my weight is increasing. So that's a feedback, right? I get an understanding, I get a score. Weighing machine shows me a score. I get an understanding. A feedback is, I think I'm eating too much of carbs these days, or heavy meals these days, but I don't act upon it. So is the progression happening in my health? No. So I'm taking a test of myself every day, maybe every week. By standing on the weighing machine, I give a feedback to myself. I'm eating a lot of, fat-rich food or carb-rich food or more than my calorie requirement. So my feedback is also there, but no action is happening. I'm not taking any remedial action. I'm not tailoring or customizing my food habits, customizing my dinner or my lunch. If I don't take action, the whole assessment process is incomplete. And therefore, when we say we take tests, we take exams, what does it reveal to us? It gives a feedback to a teacher. Does it give a feedback to the student as well? So how are we giving and creating a feedback for the learner? And then both learner and teacher, what do we do with that feedback? Can I go back and teach that area of gaps again? Do I create certain activities or create certain tasks that students can go back and do it on their own to, meet those gaps? They can explore certain websites. They can, engage in certain activities which help them get a deeper understanding. So till that time, let's look at that. Repetitive testing cannot replace continuous assessment, right? So the schools sometimes test not because learners need it, because we have been following that tradition. And we feel that creating a stress for a student through a testing system helps them learn better. Cambridge approaches for continuous assessment is very simple. Assess when the information will help teaching. Not when the calendar says it's a test day, it's Monday, unit test is happening. It's the term end unit test, exam is happening. Feedback is the engine of assessment. Testing alone is not, so it will drive your train of assessment if the feedback is acted upon, right? So that's the thought for ourselves. And we talk about coming to what assessment, terminology we use, if I can call that as a term. So in the vocabulary of the educational, growing educational system, becoming more aware as an educationist, we are looking at assessment for learning, assessment as learning, assessment of learning. So in Cambridge system, we don't prioritize learning over for is important, as learning is important. Of course, off learning is the summative assessment, right? But even for and off, like I'm showing you that for learning is teacher is driven by feedback and students are guided in their teaching. So that is the purpose for learning, assessment for learning. That means here the feedback is important. Teacher makes her teaching plan more effective based on the feedback, and student get a guidance on what I should do with, where have I reached with my learning and what I should be doing next. So it guides both teacher and student. As learning is, student can reflect. As they are learning, they can reflect. What am I learning? Where can I use them? What are my areas which I can engage, which I can understand better? Which are the areas which I don't understand? And what happens with the assessment as learning support? It gives the ownership to the learner. They become in charge of their own learning. And off learning, as you know, is endpoint judgment, where you are at the end of 1 month, at the end of 1 week, at the end of an year of teaching learning, and it gives you a certification. So in short, this is what it is, right? If we have to define as learning, off learning, for learning. So, of course, which one dominates your school currently? Honest thinking. Is it as learning? Is it for learning? Is it off learning? And which one should? So, which one is dominating? If we can get some answers in your chat, what is dominating in your? So, it's not that we are going to, judge the schools or we are going to judge you, but it's a culture which has been set, and we have all been brought through the culture. So, maybe it's a balance of both right now in your culture. So, give it a thought about it, and we move forward with it, right? So, if we move to the next one, who benefits when assessment works well? Why are we here together? We are here to look at from making assessment from a measurement tool to a meaningful learning tool, right? So, of course, yes, all is the answer. Who benefits when assessment works well? Our students benefit, our teachers benefit, our parents benefit. So everyone wins, right? When it fails, everyone suffers. So that is also important. When we say who benefits and all of these three stakeholders benefit, therefore, when it fails, everyone suffers. Teachers are what do you say, demotivated that they have put in so much of hard work. They are also being judged with the learning progress has not happened for my batch of learners. Parents do not get the confidence that the learning system is beneficial for their child. They don't know what to do. They are not from the educational specialization field. So this is where I want to say very clearly something, that what we celebrate is what we nurture. So what are we looking after? Right? If we are celebrating every day, we are measuring a plant, how tall the plant has grown, and I'll give it more water now. It's not growing very fast. Then we are just celebrating the length of the plant. What about our bonsai? Then, so they are different, right? They need a different kind of nurturing. They need a different kind of soil preparation. They need a different kind of supportive environment. Some plants thrive in shade. Some plants thrive in the sunshine. They want it every time. Some plants need to have a balance of the weather conditions, right? So if we are celebrating just growth in scores, we are nurturing the scores, right? So everybody is into, the teachers are into testing and scores and setting up question papers to get help the children get more scores. Classroom teaching happens so that the children are scoring better. Children are focusing on recall and learning and memorization or copying for scoring better. So if we celebrate score and certification, we are nurturing score and certification. If we celebrate only marks, learners will chase marks, teachers will chase marks. But if we celebrate growth, effort, improvement, curiosity, we are nurturing exactly those. So like, how many times we celebrate the best question asked in the class in the week? And you put the name of the learner and the question there, right? It's very inspiring because you're celebrating asking of innovative questions, which are very relevant to what the teachers are learning. And it helps learner to develop more curiosity, because the competition and chasing is about asking innovative questions, asking curious question. Somebody moved from getting 2 to 3 scores in terms of if we want to use summative assessment from out of 10, suddenly to 7. Now the best growth is celebrated. The best growth, best effort maker of this week, this month, so and so. So you have effort, maker's wall, certification of good effort, certification of highest growth, jump in the scores, certification of curiosity. Then we are nurturing that. If we nurture best scores, best marks, best highest scores, we are nurturing that. So we have to choose as a educational environment, what do we celebrate? Are we celebrating a wall full of trophies? Or are we celebrating a group of children and teachers who are making a lot of efforts of learning, being curious, being innovative, right? And then the nurturing is exactly right for a learning to happen. And how does this happen? Now, it's easier said than done. We are all part of a system which is, run by a lot of other systems in place, right? For teachers and learners, what is important, and we call this a golden triangle, right? So when these three, the teaching, the learning and assessment, they are rightly triangulated. They are balancing each other. So you're teaching something. We are looking at why are we teaching? We are teaching to help learning happen. In between, we have to assess, is the learning happening what we wanted to teach? If not, we again go back to teaching. So the triangle keeps working. Has learning happened? Do I need to modify something in my teaching, or do I need to see that the learning in my learners are supported better? Teaching is happening better, but I need to support my learners with motivation, with a little more of support in certain examples. So assessment, teaching, learning has to be continuous. And when these three work in harmony, the learners are thriving, the students are thriving. And assessment is not a standalone element. It reflects teaching, it reflects learning, and it fuels learning, right? So where is the, when you were looking at the golden triangle, think for yourself as an educationist, where is the imbalance in your triangle? Do you over assess but under analyze? Because analysis of assessment data is the feedback, right? So we are over assessing, but there is no time to analyze. Or we teach well, but we don't assess. We move forward, we have very random assessments. So we are teaching well, but assessment is without purpose. So a great school is not the one that produces very high marks. A great school is the one that produces accurate learning information that strengthens teaching, that sharpens learning, right? And when assessment aligns to the pedagogy, to the curriculum, learning becomes unstoppable. So we are here today as a group of educational to, sharpen our pedagogical knives to support the learning better, right? And this is, and here these are reflection opportunities for us, these webinars, where we can look at where is the imbalance in my golden triangle and what I need to slowly bring more into my teaching learning process. So school becomes excellence. When we say, what do we celebrate? Are we celebrating this school produces, highest number of, toppers or 90% achievers? So excellence comes when the balance shifts from marks to learning progress. So we have to bring that shift, right? And Cambridge qualifications are built purposefully across these three modes. That assessment is aligned or not, teaching learning are meeting each other's need or not. And like we say, what we celebrate is what we nurture. If our excellence is defined by marks, we are going to nurture the whole school environment will nurture that process. And if we are looking into creating opportunities for learners to show their efforts, to show their sincerity, to drive their motivation, so that is celebrated. And then learning progresses, and it's not the snapshots of today's marks are these, tomorrow's marks are these. So learning snapshots are our certifications, our report cards. Learning progress is a whole thing related to your feedback, which is based on the assessment which you conduct. So think, what are we celebrating in our school system, in your own classroom? What are we celebrating and why? What is the ultimate value of where we want to take this process? And would you like to change something? So that's a reflection for us right now, right? And when we look at the Cambridge process, because right now I am talking about as an educational curriculum provider, it provides the curriculum, it designed the curriculum, and it doesn't wait for the examination qualification, 10th board, 11th board, 12th board to assess again learning. The whole system is built it like this, that from the very beginning, the Cambridge learners become confident learners. They become responsible, ownership of their own learning. They can reflect and understand why I'm moving. Reflection is a way of assessment and feedback and acting upon it, right? So reflection is a whole part and process of assessment. So we help learners become reflective through the day-to-day lessons and think innovatively, and then be engaged. When they can reflect, they can analyze themselves, they can find their own gaps. The whole teaching learning is supported to make them confident learners. They are very engaged in the learning. And therefore, the whole designing of the whole program is such that we celebrate and create a culture of learning progress. So how do we bring in, so even if you are not a Cambridge school, how do we bring Cambridge principles into daily practice? So what are the principles? We can bring it to our classroom, we can bring it to our school culture. So success criteria has to shift. Like I said, we are not celebrating trophies and achievements and a wall full of lot of certificates of teachers and students. The whole success criteria shades on is shared before the task. That today we are going to have a discussion on your project, but I am looking at how innovative your projects are. So it may not reach to a conclusion, but the idea is very innovative. So you are being judged for your innovativeness. Today, we are looking at how confidently you are able to present what you have learned. So confidence is there. We are not looking at, is the learning correct or incorrect, but have you gained confidence in speaking, presenting, talking to your teammates? So sharing the success criteria is like you have to move from one city to another. And you start your car and you don't know, you sit in a bus and you don't know where you are going. So if we share that this is the criteria, this is the journey time, 3 hours to 4 hours, depending on traffic or hurdles in our classroom learning, but this is where we want to reach. So milestones need to be shared before us. So if we reach in 3 hours, you are successful. If you take six hours, that means the journey was not successful. So rubrics are written in student language, which they understand. That if I can use simple sentences, but bring an idea and put my thoughts in different. My thoughts are connected well. I don't jump from one sentence on one idea and then another sentence, another idea. My ideas are built up along paragraph. That is a rubric. That is a specific task and feedback for the student. So when they have the rubrics, they can, that is a kind of assessment also for themselves, a reflection task, and they have the areas of feedback. If I can write simple sentences and all connected well with the thought, I am now getting a clear understanding of how a good work of text writing looks like, right? If I can bring complex sentences and use high vocabulary, a little difficult vocabulary, I am now moving ahead in my text writing, right? So give them rubrics which are very clear, give them specific improvement feedback after every task, time to act upon feedback. Okay, I've got my understanding, like I gave you the feedback on my weight analogy, that I'm taking a feedback, my weight is increasing every time, and but I need to act in within a month or within a week or the same day maybe. So give them the time to act on a feedback, that this is a feedback, let's act upon it together, maybe as a teacher or a whole group class or as a student to student, and help student learn to self-reflect and self-assessment, because it's an important tool. So any school, any curriculum becomes powerful when assessment feeds learning. It fuels the learning. So you're adding the coal into a fire, assessment feedback is the coal, right? So do use that intuitively. Now, we have a certain time, 10 minutes to look at if I say that every revolution begins with first very, very small steps. So we cannot overhaul, in a night, the whole culture of teaching learning in your school or for yourself. But similarly, assessment cannot transfer overnight for yourself, for your student. Your student also need to get an understanding of this process is changing. This is what we are moving forward to. So if you have to create a revolution in our educational setup, we all, as your answers were coming through, we all are very aware of what good assessment practices are. So we don't want to change it overnight. We have to take, small steps. And every time a teacher gives feedback that makes a learner feel more capable, assessment is transforming, right? So you are bringing in that revolution in the teaching section. So one change you will make in your assessment practice, share in your chat so that we can, what happens with sharing? We are reflecting together. With reflection, we are self-assessing. Oh, somebody is given this idea that they will want to make this change like this. I can also bring it. So we are here together as a group of very experienced educationists. We have seen certain practices happening because it has become a habit or a culture in our system. What first change or one or two changes I would want specifically to assessment in my classroom? Please start sharing so that we all can benefit from it. So any answers? Yes. Okay, so continuous is what we are looking at. Reflection. You can create opportunity. So after every lesson, maybe say, let's reflect and write down one question. What motivated me for this learning and in the classroom, or maybe I was disengaged. Why? It could be a learner's own mood. It could be the teaching methodology did not support. So you are also getting a feedback, and learner is also learning to assess, why did I not pay attention? Why was I disengaged? So these are all small tools which are very supportive. You don't have to, like we said, you don't have to take very big steps. Okay, clear checklist. Yes, of course, because checklist is what? It is like when you are moving on a road, you see a milestone. This city is 20 miles or 20 kilometers away. You know what is your next, what you need to do. Can I increase my speed? I just have to reach by this time for the meeting. So the checklists are like milestone for the learners, and they know what to do next, where they are in their learning. Because I can put a tick against 3 checklists, but 4th one I'll really have to work hard. So that's a reflection tool, and any reflection tool is an assessment tool. So good to see these responses. You can share more than one response, of course. To ask students to analyze the learning gaps and give feedback to, this is a very, very effective way, because learning, when we say learners have to be independent learners, learning cannot be confined to a teacher. When the teacher is present, learning will happen. When they are in the school, learning will happen. So within the classroom walls, within the school walls, we cannot confine learning. We have to see that learners get the tools to take their learning outside, and self-reflection, self-analysis of gaps is what is important. So encouraging and celebrating curiosity. Any smallest question is a good question, right? So helping them be curious learners, helping them celebrate asking of questions in the classroom. Any more? So see, when we put our mind together as an educationist, we are the ones who are shaping the future of this world. We have a lot of responsibility on our shoulders, right? And when we cannot depend on just because the culture is like this, because the tradition is like this. This is a very delicate balance which we have to. We have to carry on certain part of the tradition because the parents are dependent, the school system is dependent on it, but we have to also now meet the demands of the next new world our learners are going to step into, right? And those are all skill based, and skills cannot be taught in a single day. They cannot be taught and memorized like child sits and memorizes in 1 week and produces the answers in the test. So the skills have to be developed, and therefore assessment of skills and learning of skills is very, very important. Supporting of skill learning is important. So wonderful answers we are getting here. And feedback, of course, feedback and action time is something which is very, very important. So this is the call to action which we all must take, right? When we say that, that we have a compass as teachers in our hand, right? And if I talked from Cambridge point of view, Cambridge sees assessment as a support system, not as an elimination system. That is what competitive exams are about. Like, if you get these many scores, we need only 20 people. Everybody get 92, we'll see 92.6, 92.5, because competition is an elimination system. Our assessment in an education system has to be a support system. So when we use assessment to uplift rather than filter out, we give students the gift of believing in their own ability. And the belief more than any grade shapes their future. If you give them confidence, you give them the belief in their skills, that is going to help them decide to and be successful in whatever they choose. So you hold the compass of not just shaping the lives of the learners, you are holding the compass of shaping the whole world, the future of the whole world. So do remember, score is not the goalpost but the learner is, and you are enabling the learners. And therefore, let's unlock student potential through purposeful assessment. And this is the call for action we are taking. So any other question, anything, Mr. Madan, if I missed in the chat box or questions which are there, happy to answer them.
Nothing as a question as such here in the meeting chat. Thank you for the wonderful session, Alka. So let me share the feedback form here so that people can fill the form, and I'll consolidate all the feedback and then I'll share it with you, Alka, once by tomorrow or the day after.
Please share feedback. It is very important for every one of us, like you were discussing.
Yeah.
With understanding, the student needs alongside discipline. So this is highly, highly essential.
Thank you for the feedback.
It is every teacher's.
So any questions, team? So we have another few minutes, 2 to 3 minutes for the question.
I can see something about differentiated assessment. I would say that this is a very deep area, and we don't say differentiated just for assessment. We say you get an assessment of where your different learners are, because the learner who is right now understanding a topic, next day, tomorrow, he may not be understanding a little progression or difficult task in that topic. So every learner needs support, and they are at different levels of learning. Therefore, we call it creating an inclusive classroom. I would, kind of nudge you to look at some, readings on creating an inclusive classroom. Like what we did today, we were talking to each other, right? And when we read the sharing in the chat box, we were learning from each other. So somebody who did not understand, how can I redefine assessment, read the chats, and we became empowered. So I would say, like, I am at a lower level of understanding how to change my assessment system, But if you create an environment where everybody is in the sharing in the classroom, we learn from each other. So don't assess differentiately. Assessment has to be continuous. You as a teacher get an understanding. If the gap is when you have a dialogue in the classroom, when you talk about what you have learned today and everybody speaks. As a teacher, that's an assessment. And you get an understanding where my learners are. Almost all of them can understand the foundational aspect, but none of them can, or very few of them can take to a higher learning skills. So let me give a few more examples. And or ask the learners, can you think of example? 5 learners share very strong example, 13 are hearing to them and listening to them and learning to them. So having a dialogic classroom where a lot of talks happen helps assessment also and helps learning also. There are so many these days, just like this is about how to prepare a lesson, which is very strong. You should be very clear on what you want your learners to learn, right? And then these days, when we say the internet is full of teaching, learning ideas, students are using it as a teacher, when we have a broad understanding of where we want to strengthen it, that is very important. You can look at a lot of ideas online, creating, if I was talking about group work, group work is not just making the students sit in a class. Group work has to be very carefully structured, so the prompts, what you will give them, prompts will be every child takes 2 minutes to talk and note, so that you are balancing the teamwork. Not one person takes the task. So any activity which you may choose for making your lesson stronger has to be also structured in a way that prompts are there, certain formats are there, and students follow it so that the group activity doesn't fail. So that's just one example, but give a thoughtful, look on what you want to achieve from your lesson. And if you put it on the internet, you will get a lot of examples as well. And a lot of trainings and workshops and webinars like these, if you keep attending.
Yeah, thank you, Alka. Thank you for the wonderful session. And thanks for accepting our invite. It was we were trying to reach out to you, and you were graciously accepting the invite. Thank you for it. And yes, team, I've already shared the feedback link. It is there on the meeting chat. I'm resharing it with you. Please fill it up, and then we'll send you the certificates within 4 working days. And Alka, yes, we are sharing you a package. Once we dispatch to you, we'll let you know. So thank you.
This is itself a reward. Interacting and being a part of learning community is the biggest reward we can have as educationists. So thank you so much for giving the opportunity. And thank you everyone who decided to attend and could take the time out to attend.
Okay, thank you.